Welcome back to the Strength and Speed Podcast. I'm your host, Conquer the Gauntlet Pro and Strength and Speed owner, Evan Preparis. I got another Conquer the Gauntlet Pro on the line with me. Joining me is Jay Flores. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. Excited to be back.
Yeah, we're going to get to some of his stuff in a minute. Before we get to that, though, quick word from our sponsors. So this episode is brought to you by Aurora Heated Apparel. So if you've been following my Facebook or Instagram, you've heard I'm doing OCR America again, but this time in the winter. So I call it OCR America 2 when hell freezes over, because I said I would absolutely never do this again. And here I am 4 years later doing it again, raising money for Folds of Honor. Anyway, because it's going to be super cold and I'm torturing my dad and several of my friends / pit crew, I want to make sure they're comfortable while I'm racing. So partner with Aurora Heated Apparel. So it's vests and jackets that they're going to be wearing that actually is built-in heaters. So electric heaters that's going to be keeping them warm while I'm running laps in the 20 to 0 degree weather, whatever the weather comes at the end of January between New York and Kansas City. So one, check out Aurora Heated Apparel. You can find links on the Strength and Speed website and Facebook page. And then also make sure you check out OCR America 2. If you're in, New York, Maryland, more New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, Missouri, or Kansas City, you're going to want to head to that event week of January 19th to the 26th. We're going to talk about more about that later. Let's get to our guest, Jay Flores. Jay Flores has been on the Conquer the Gauntlet Pro team a couple of years, has more than 50 OCR podiums, although I did not think it went up too high this year because he spent most of the year on I'm going to mess up the pronunciation again. Just say the name of the show.
Yeah, the show is called Exatlon.
There you go. He spent most of his year on that TV show, which was broadcast nightly on Telemundo. That's what we're going to spend most of the episode talking about. But if you don't know who Jay is, because he's been absent from the OCR scene for most of this year, like I said, 50-plus podiums across a wide variety of races. I think he's got about 8 or 9 Conquer the Gauntlet podiums. On top of that, he won Master of the Rig competition at OCR World Championships in 2017, I believe it was.
Yep.
And then the year there was the U.S. OCR Championships, he got a gold and silver in his age group in the 3K and 15K, and was top 15 at NORAM this past year in the 3K. So Speed Demon short.
2 years ago.
2 years ago, sorry. That's right.
Yeah,
you
I
weren't
was
there
gone this year. I couldn't compete. Yeah.
So Speed Demon, short course, kind of the opposite side of the spectrum I operate on, but that's why I like it, because it brings a different perspective to the show. So Jay, again, welcome. And let's start off. Tell us about the TV show, right? Because I know it was on Telemundo. I tried to watch it the first night it was on, and turns out I don't have Telemundo. So I was left with your Facebook updates. So let's assume the listeners didn't see any episodes. Like, explain the concept of what the show is, and then we'll kind of start jumping into some of those details.
Definitely, yeah. So it's in its third season. Season 4 is about to kick off in a couple of weeks. So it's done very well, actually, on Telemundo. One of the things that attracted me to it was the fact that it was 6 days a week in primetime television. So the exposure was just an awesome opportunity to be able to spread a little word more about OCR athletes, and as well as the things that I do in the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and math world. It's really hard to describe if you haven't seen it. I like to call it a little bit of a mix of Survivor and Ninja Warrior, but to neither extreme. So you're not necessarily trying to cook your own food and hunt it and build your own shelter. But there was a dynamic where the two teams would compete for whether they were living in the mansion or the cabin. So living conditions of a huge house with a bunch of rooms and pool. The pool actually went into the house, which was pretty awesome, versus living in this little cabin with 10 people in it. No fans, no air conditioning, no nothing, in the middle of the Dominican Republic. So we were like burning hot at night trying to sleep with a little tiny bathroom that you had to walk outside to get to. That dynamic of the show made it kind of the whole survivor feeling of whether you're out in the elements or whether you're in the comfort of the mansion. And then not to the extent of Ninja Warrior in terms of obstacle difficulty, but the short course feel. Nothing was longer than 200 meters, which although you said I was a speed demon, 200 meters is way too short for me. But think of it as, I don't know, Warrior Dash type difficulty or less. It was more about how fast you could get through the obstacles versus how challenging the obstacles were.
Yeah, I watched a couple of your little clips on Instagram and on your Facebook, and like you said, the difficulty was just not. I was hoping for like rigs and the shays and stuff like that, and it was just like there's crap in my way between me and at the end it's like some of them you had to like knock over pins or not, like it's kind of throwing type things.
Yes, I forgot to mention that part actually. So at the end of each circuit, again, like 100 to 150 meters worth of obstacles. There was like a target practice challenge. You were throwing anything from a sandbag to a frisbee type disc to little baseball type objects, a wide variety of things. We threw axes one day, and that's kind of like the final challenge after you get through the circuit and your heart rate is up and everyone's yelling and the cameras are on you. You have to then do this pretty precise target throwing. So it was really cool because it made it kind of anyone's game in that point. If you weren't super fast through, you could still catch up in the throwing portion, or vice versa. So it made it really dynamic, and every single day was a different type of throwing thing. And I was out there for 12 weeks competing 6 days a week. So we went through a significant amount of different challenges, and they had about like 15, probably by the end of the time the show ended, probably 17 different circuits, ranging from one that started in the ocean on a little zip line, and you just dropped into the water and kind of climb up onto obstacles and jump back into the water, etc., to one that was like a super muddy course from the beginning to end. You were going through mud, there was really no break, to some that were completely just on land and sand. So it was a wide variety, which made it exciting and cool for the audience to watch.
Now, you mentioned it was on 6 days a week. How did they produce that much content for all 6 days, right? Because I feel like that's a lot of video to shoot and then a lot to edit and a lot to put up, daily, essentially.
Yeah, it was intense, man. So there's huge, humongous crew, tons and tons of cameras and people behind creating the show. It was really cool to see. I've been to like Ninja Warrior tapings before, and they have awesome stuff, but this show definitely had a lot more cameras, and I'm trying to capture like a lot of different things, especially at the speed at which it was going through, and there wasn't really any stops, kind of like a Ninja Warrior when you complete an obstacle and they might take a couple seconds to rest. This was as fast as you can, pedal to the metal. But we were there about 10 days ahead of when filming actually launched on TV. And we were filming an episode almost every single day. It was pretty intense. Again, you're going 100% 6 days a week for 3 months that I was there. And as we got closer to the end, there's less people on your team, so you have to go more times. So I could have been going 4 or 5 times in a day. They're short. Again, it's only like 2 minutes of competition, but it's pedal to the metal. So it was very challenging to really shift my focus and training to more agility and speed, and kind of taking breaks in between competitions versus OCR and distance running in general, used to just kind of going and trying to conserve that energy and relying on my endurance. I really had to shift against that.
Yeah, that's hard. You got to get your body all amped up and kind of get all fast twitch explosive and then calm back down for the next event. So that's
exactly.
So the ones we were assuming I had Telemundo and watched every night. So was what I watching actually on a 10-day delay because of the production?
Exactly. So
okay,
what was going on TV was anywhere between a week and 2 weeks in the past. which made it interesting because sometimes I had to change things around. But it was cool to just see how that all comes together. And then the interviews that they do with us in the house or in the cabin where we're at, there was days where we would compete for different rewards, anything from like a night out where we would go to this place in Punta Cana and, just hang out, party, to food, all kinds of different things that we could earn. One of them was a family visit, which we got. So the other aspect I didn't share earlier, which is really key to the show, is you're disconnected completely. What you saw on Instagram was things that my girlfriend, now fiance, was putting on through my channel. So we had to give up our phones on the first day. They put in a Ziploc bag with our name and how much money we left and all that stuff. And we were literally disconnected from the rest of the world for 3 to 4 months, which made it a really challenging mental game as well. And then you're living with 10 people that you've never met before. And when you're in the cabin, you're all basically in one big room. It makes living conditions and challenges very interesting. So it's pretty intense on that side. The other thing is that with every week in those competitions, then we didn't really know what was going to be happening the next day. You could win the mansion one day and then 3 days later you're competing for it again. So there's a lot of mental strength that was needed for the competition as well.
And then at the end of each day or week, they did like a survivor type thing where they voted you off the island. Is that what happened?
So at the end of, every week, every Sunday, there was a elimination. And that was based on which team won the competition that morning. So we would have a competition on Sunday morning. Whichever team won would then have to go to elimination. And the person that went to elimination there was one person that was guaranteed, which was whoever was the lowest percentage that week. But it alternates based male, female. So if your team lost the first time and let's say women were up for for elimination that first week, the next time that your team would go, then men were up for elimination. And it was the person that was lowest. And then the other person that would go was determined by the person on the team who had the highest kind of win percentage throughout the journey of the competition. So that person would decide. Most of the time it was whoever was the second lowest percentage would automatically go. They very rarely strayed from that kind of tradition, but in the past it has happened where they just want to throw someone else into the fire. It's not as cutthroat as Survivor, I'd say, in the sense that there's like a lot of backstabbing or plotting against each other and stuff like that. It was more really, you want to keep the best people on the team, so you had to keep kind of going that way.
Gotcha. And then from a production side, 6 days a week and that much content to be produced, I just find baffling and a little bit fascinating, right? Because you watch some of the American reality shows and you can kind of tell they're not scripted, but there's helping hands there guiding the situation. And, they've crafted these storylines over weeks and months to have people appear a certain way. And, just being able to produce 6 episodes a week, were they an hour-long show? How long were they, 30 minutes?
It's actually 2 hours long.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, so it's intense. A lot of it is just the games were like to 10 points. So there's a good amount of content already just from showing the runs. For some people, I think it can kind of get repetitive, but then I think back to other shows like Ninja Warrior, everyone's also doing the same course.
That's true.
So the cool thing about this is since it's head to head and the matchups change every round, it does throw a little bit of kind of freshness into it, even though it's so long, versus like a Ninja Warrior where you're watching a different person, but it's the same course, versus the head to head, kind of more like a Team Ninja Warrior thing. And so there's a lot to produce there. And then, there's interviews after your runs. The other things that they kind of would put on are a little bit of kind of the conversations we would have back at the houses, a little bit of speculation as to what might come next. We always had cameras on us 24/7. There was even cameras in our bedrooms and microphones. The only place that didn't have a camera was the bedroom and then the commute to and from the courses.
The bathroom.
So that
bathroom.
was,
You meant to say bathroom, right? You said the only
Yeah,
place that didn't have
bathroom.
oh yeah, you said bedroom again, I think.
Oh, my bad. Yeah.
Yeah.
The only place that didn't have cameras was the bathrooms. And so just that dynamic too of like being kind of watched all the time and everything is potential content, was another challenge. But also pretty cool. And so that's kind of what put together the whole content that they would then produce, and they had those 10 days to put it together. But like I said, they had like an army of people working on this.
Cool. Now, you mentioned it a little bit earlier. Your girlfriend came out to the show at one point. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so that was an awesome experience. So again, when we're without communication for so long, it's just you really miss people a lot. You start to really appreciate the people that are around you, and that was a key win for us because we had to earn it. Like there was one time before that where we were able to win a 5-minute video call, like a Skype call, and that was like we fought our butts off for that. And and then that was the only communication I had with her until the visit. So that was about, I think, 6 weeks in when she was able to come. In those 6 weeks, I had only talked to her for 5 minutes. And then they came in because we won that challenge and everyone was able to have a family member come. We didn't get to pick, which was the crazy part. And so they actually kind of played a trick on me because I know I wanted her to come. They said my mom was coming. But when they started like having the family come in and surprise us, she ended up coming through the door, and I was super excited. They were able to spend a night with us, or not the night with us, but like kind of that evening. And we were in the cabin at that time. So she really got to experience what it was like for us. She got to see the heat. She had to go to the bathroom at one point. She tried to hold it for as long as she could, but she couldn't. So I had to take her to the bathroom where we were there. We even were doing like interviews, and a little spider came on her leg and she like freaked out and jumped and ran off camera, and the spider somehow got on the wall, and so I just killed the spider and I was like, welcome to Exatlon. This is what we deal with every day. And she came back into the interview. Then they got to watch us and cheer for us competing. That was really the advantage that we had won, was not just the visit, but them being able to come and support us on an elimination day. And we had a dinner that night, and that's when I decided to propose to her, which was pretty awesome. For the longest time, she'd been saying she didn't want a wedding ring, and like was going back and forth. And I was like, I'm never gonna be able to propose to you because you can't decide whether you want a ring or not. And I would joke that I was gonna get her a ring pop because she wouldn't decide. And so I asked production to help me get a ring pop, and I also created a little ring in the cabin. I found a little piece of wire, and I kind of stripped the plastic covering off and used the copper and some other little design things that I found around to make her a little kind of rustic cabin ring there. So it was kind of cool. She was totally caught off guard, and it was on TV and everything. So she was really excited, and I was super nervous. I actually put the ring on her finger before she actually said yes. And nice. I didn't even notice it. She just told me afterwards. I was like, but
yeah, well, I mean, that's taking already a high nerve situation, and then you put cameras there and
right?
realize it's going to be broadcast, right? Like that makes it exponentially worse. Like,
exactly.
I know I was nervous. I knew I knew my wife was going to say yes at the time, but like I was still nervous, right? Because I mean, it's a life-changing decision.
Exactly. And I was, we've been together for a long time too, and I was pretty confident she was going to say yes, but she's really picky with things like that. Like, she had told me in the past, like my nails better be done and blah, 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 stuff like that. So I was nervous about that. Like, was she going to like what they set up for us and everything? Fortunately, production did a pretty awesome job and set up a nice dinner, and the team was there. And so I started by kind of just talking to the team and the family that had come and thanking them and letting them know how important a visit like that was for us. And that, kind of started talking about how I had gotten used to living without a cell phone, not knowing what time it was. We didn't have clocks, we didn't have watches, nothing. Not having, being able to take a shower with warm water whenever we're in the cabin, not deciding what you're going to eat or what time you're going to eat. Like there was really barely any decisions we were able to make while we were in there. And then kind of just switched and said, but I found out that I can't live without you, and went on there with my whole speech, but it worked out well, and I'm really grateful to production for helping it. Plus, we got free wedding or proposal pictures and stuff too, so
That's nice. Yeah.
that was convenient.
Yeah, I felt bad for her. So, like you said, she was managing all your social media stuff. So she's
Yep.
getting all like, I'm still tagging you and sharing things, and like I have you in private chats talking about the pro team and blah blah blah. Like, and she's probably like, ugh, what is this? This guy won't shut up. So no,
Yeah,
my
I'm really
apologies to
lucky
that.
that. No, no worries. I'm really lucky I had her doing that. It's a full-time job. I mean, she had to watch all the episodes, which she would have done anyways. But like with the aspect of thinking about the social media and what to post and what to share and all that, so it was a huge help. And it helped out with my following and everything with it as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of that is having I think that was good foresight, because you had the system in place to really benefit from that versus if you just kind of threw your phone off to the side, right? Your Facebook would have been, and social media would not have updated at all. Then you'd just feel like a ghost for, 4 months or whatever it was.
Exactly. And it's a huge opportunity. I mean, some of the things you mentioned, with like not having been in this season as much, it's crazy how much changes and how much moves and what race series are doing what and all this stuff. And it's, I came back, I was like, oh my goodness, world championship is in Vermont, there's no NORAM, like Tough Mudder stuff, all these things happen, and it's just like
Warrior Dash closes.
Yeah. All these changes. And unfortunately, I had her help, and I had that kind of in place to take advantage of it, and saw a big increase. Now I have that kind of platform with this audience, especially in the Hispanic community. I don't think, it depends on where you live, obviously, but in general, I think we're definitely underrepresented in the sport. And I hope that this will help me bring more attention to the people that were viewing the show and saw this cool obstacle thing and, oh wow, I can go to this event in my backyard, and get my kids involved in kids races and stuff like that. So I definitely want to leverage that platform to keep it moving.
Awesome. Now you mentioned how the actual competition for the show was different from some of your training. Hypothetically, if you, we're going to go back to the show, maybe for an all-star episode or something where you had to compete on the same courses again, what would you modify in your training, or would you modify anything?
Yeah. So one thing we haven't talked about much yet is the eliminations. And that's where my OCR background really helped. I came into the show thinking like, man, I'm going to destroy this because the obstacles I do are way harder than this. But I underestimated the speed and agility part of it, right? I'm pretty fast in general for an OCR athlete or a distance athlete, but I'm not, I had a guy on my team that was in training camp with the Cowboys and the Giants, right? So like super fast, someone that can do a 40-yard dash in a ridiculous time. Different athletes that are used to more of this speed stuff, right? And I'm here being more of like a marathon. I don't run marathons, but like it was like having Usain Bolt like try to run a 5K basically in the opposite direction. I don't know, one of the top 5K runners trying to go up against Usain Bolt. And so that was very challenging. But the difference with eliminations is that versus on regular days where you would go up against someone and then there would be a girl matchup and then there would be another guy matchup, several matchups before you would go again and you had that rest period. Eliminations was you versus someone else and you're going back to back. And it was the first to win 4. And there was these medals that you could earn throughout competition some weeks where that medal would allow you to take away a win from one of those people. So depending on how many medals were in the matchups, it could be anywhere from 4 to like 12 matches against that person back to back. And so that's where my endurance and my OCR background really helped me, is because I was able to keep going. Let's say that one of those guys could go 100 miles per hour. I could only go 70, but I could go 70 all day. And after 2 or 3 passes, that person's 100 miles is now down to 60, 50, right? So I ended up actually going to elimination in week 2, which was the first male elimination. And I survived 3 eliminations and made it all the way to week 12 when I was finally eliminated, my 4th elimination. And so that's really where I thrive. So I would keep most of my distance training going on, one, because my long-term life in the sport is still OCR. It's not this particular TV show, and it helped me on elimination days. But I would definitely do a lot more agility training, maybe some track work with really short things like 200-meter repeats and stuff like that. And really focus in on that speed and agility aspect, because I was pretty good at the throwing overall. I just usually came in a few seconds behind these guys because they were more of a sprinter type athletes.
Gotcha. In the past, have they done any all-star episodes, or have they brought people back, or has it been different people every season?
Yeah, so the first 3 seasons, it's all been different people. This 4th season coming up on the 20th, it airs. They're adding 4 people 2 from season 1 and 2 from season 2 are coming back. And I'm pretty sure eventually there will be some form of all-star episode. They've also done in the past where they would bring back, like last year they did, season 1 came back to compete against season 2 just for like a day. Or the show is actually also produced in other countries, and sometimes they'll have like Exatlon Mexico versus Exatlon Colombia and USA, and they'll put Romania and Turkey. It's actually a Turkish production company that then sold the kind of format to Exatlon to be able, or sorry, to Telemundo to be able to put on air, and they sell it to TV Azteca in Mexico, etc. So there's other opportunities like that too, where I might be able to come back for like a special episode, kind of like Ninja Warriors has, like the charity episodes or different kind of twists on the show.
Nice. Sounds like a good opportunity, and hopefully that comes down the pipe in the future. Now, for those of us that missed the show, is there any way we can catch it someplace in either reruns or maybe on one of the streaming services, or someplace in English also? Because
yeah, so I don't think there's a English place, but all of the episodes are up on YouTube. It's usually a condensed, like 20-some minute version, which is what most of you, especially if you're not a Spanish speaker, will want to look at. And then there's, I think, a link in the YouTube video to Telemundo website if you want to watch that full episode. So there's definitely ways to watch the entire season or just watch different aspects of it. The eliminations are always cool to watch too. They usually show the whole elimination. Just take out some of the interviews and stuff to make it shorter for YouTube. But yeah, you can definitely get back and look at it. And then if you do speak Spanish, or you're just interested in seeing the show, even if you don't speak Spanish, it airs again on the 20th for season 4. One of the funniest things is I did have a good amount of friends that don't speak Spanish that kind of got excited about it. And I had one particular friend who was like, man, for 2 weeks, I couldn't find out who Victoria was. And Victoria in Spanish, yeah, I think you got it. It is victory. And so the announcer would say, the victory goes to like this person. And my friends were just so confused, like, who's this Victoria girl? Why do they keep announcing her?
That's amazing.
So it's funny, like some of those lost in translation things that happen, or just confusion that they would sometimes have, or things that they would know. Actually, one thing that some of the OCR athletes here, and English viewers in general, will appreciate is that Mac Rush was actually on the show. He was the first ever English speaker to be on it. And so that was very interesting dynamic. But some of my English speaking friends were excited when he would be on because he would speak in English, obviously.
Yeah.
So it was pretty intense. He was actually really good. Mac is built for short course type stuff. Towards the end, I think he kind of lost a little bit on the kind of keeping his head in the game portion of it, and kind of went down a little at the end, but he made it really far.
So I'm assuming the other contestants knew some English, right? Because otherwise, how was Mac talking to anyone?
Yeah, so that was a big challenge for him. His team had several people that didn't speak English at all, but there were several that did, and they would kind of help translate. And whenever we were in like the ceremony or any other aspects outside of the actual game itself, he had kind of like an earpiece where someone would be translating for him. But that made the dynamic very difficult for him. And I think that's why he maybe kind of got his head out of the game more towards the end is because he didn't have that same support system that the rest of us did, right?
Yeah.
And that ability, imagine you're already not able to talk to your family and your friends, and you can't even talk to everyone on your team. And I didn't see the same support from his team to him. I think that he deserved, because he did a lot for that team, that he may have had on our team. We were actually on opposite teams. And so my team actually had more people that were bilingual. And so we tried to, and at the beginning of the competition, they didn't really let us talk a lot to the other teams because they wanted to keep that competitive edge and that like intensity. But towards the end, we became really close with both sides, and we tried to keep Mac happy. But side note, I don't know if you noticed, but he also just got engaged.
Oh, did he really?
He just got engaged to one of the announcer ladies from the show.
That's amazing.
Mac went on the show where he didn't speak any, he's the only one that speaks English, and he ends up leaving engaged. And so congrats to Mac, and to her name is Jessica.
That's
so that
hysterical.
was pretty awesome for him. Yeah. He probably, when we first talked about it, he's like, man, I don't really know what I'm getting myself into, but it seems really cool. I love the short course type stuff, and ended up, having his life change in general. So I'm happy for Mac.
That's really funny. That's awesome. And before you went on the show, you told me that if you don't speak Spanish, you can still understand what's going on. And I haven't watched the full episodes that are available, but I know from like the YouTube clips and from the stuff that was posted on your social media, I mean, even without speaking any Spanish, you can tell what's going on, right? I mean, there's a competition,
Yeah.
there's a race. One guy is screaming at the end, the other one's like crying, right? Like it's pretty obvious. So if you don't speak Spanish, you can still go check it out. And they're worth watching.
You might not be able to get the whole dynamic of, when people are talking and being interviewed and stuff and all that. But in terms of the actual competition, in terms of like the exciting portions, you'll get that. You might be a little confused about what we're competing for at the beginning. But after you watch a couple episodes, you'll start to see the dynamic of, okay, they're usually competing for some kind of benefit, or for the mansion in the cabin, or for elimination. And you kind of get the gist of it.
All right. Now let's get into, that basically took up the second half of your OCR season. So now that we're officially in 2020, was it January 2nd? What do you have planned, or what are your goals for 2020 OCR wise?
Yeah, I'm super pumped for the season. I mean, it was tough last year. I ended up, I think, with only one podium after, I think, a year of like 15 podiums. I had a good race,
which is why I'm catching up to you.
Exactly. I saw that you passed me.
Did I really?
I think so, right? I'm at 51.
Okay, I'm at 53.
Like 52
yeah. 53.
Okay.
Yeah.
I got to catch up. But so I only had that one at Savage, which was a good race. And I had a pretty good season overall. I had a couple of 4th and 5th places with some pretty stacked Savage races. Because really all I raced last year was one in Puerto Rico, a bunch of Savage races, and then one Conquer the Gauntlet.
Which was also a ridiculous field. That was like an insane field.
What was that? Yuri,
Benny Gifford, Victor Quesada. You were there, Ashton. Like you're
Ken.
Yeah, you're usually 1st or 2nd almost always, and you were like 7th. It was like, what? And Doug's always in the top 10, and he was like 20th or something insane.
Yeah, that was intense, which is good to see though, because a lot of more big names coming out to Conquer the Gauntlet. Usually I would be able to get to the meat of the obstacles, and I'd be fine even if there was a person ahead of me. This time there was some heavy hitters ahead of me, both running and obstacle wise. So that was pretty intense. But so basically, I raced that last Conquer the Gauntlet in June, and then I went into the casting process, and I didn't really want to race in July because I didn't want to risk anything right before the show. I had a couple of knee injuries, minor things that were bothering me, so I really wanted to make sure that I was ready for the show so I could give it 100%. And so from Conquer the Gauntlet Dallas, which was beginning of June, all the way through the end of the year, I wasn't able to race, and I came back I think the day before the day of the last Savage race of the year. So I wasn't able to make that one in Florida. But the show was awesome opportunity. overall, and I think has helped me in a lot of ways with discipline, because it's 6 days a week of training, and my job was literally to be an athlete. So the challenge there was I didn't have any obstacles to train on that were really grip intensive or challenging from that sense. And they would not really let us go very far. So I barely got to run much. But I've seen in just the last month and a half since I got off the show that my discipline is there much stronger, and my miles, my running has been much more consistent. My training and making sure I'm getting things in every day has been much more consistent. So that's really, really helped me, along with the agility and speed and strength that I gained from that style of competition that I think will help me with short races like the blitzes or the 3K at World Championship. But I'm really excited. My first race will probably be in Puerto Rico next month. There's a 5K race up in the mountains that'll be pretty intense and good training for something like the 3K at Worlds. I might have a ninja competition or two before then this month, depending on what my work travel's like. Then I'll get into the meat of the Savage Race season. Definitely want to follow the Savage Race circuit again. It's one of my favorite series. And I've had pretty good success there against strong competition. And then super pumped for CTG, new venue this year. I'm not sure which ones exactly I'm going to yet.
Yeah,
but,
Kansas City. I'm excited.
Yeah, exactly. I'm excited for Kansas City. Hopefully I can make that one.
There's going to be like, I think there's going to be like a dozen people sleeping in my house. It's going to be awesome.
Nice. Add one more, please.
Sounds good.
So I know, what's the one right before Little Rock? Do you remember what's the second last one?
I haven't looked at the schedule at all. I don't know.
Well, my birthday is, I think, the day before Tulsa. So maybe I'll make a OCR birthday celebration out of it, or maybe I'll do something totally different. But either way, I'll do one of those two because they're both in September. I know Little Rock is the last one, I think, at the end of September. So super pumped for CTG again. Not doing Ninja Warrior this year. I didn't have enough time to apply because they moved the application date back, and I had just gotten back from the show. But I might go and try to course test depending on what the cities are that they choose this year for the events. And also depending on what the walk-on situation is like, I might take a stab at that. But I'll really use this year to focus in on training for Ninja Warrior season 13, which would be in 2021. And then really building out a good video and story, because I've applied several times and not been picked. Which
I can't believe. They need to watch your video closer, man. They need to watch your video closer. You got a good story.
Yeah, it's tough. I've had a couple of good ones. I know I've made some mistakes. Like my first couple of videos were terrible. I remember some of the first ones I didn't really tell enough story and really focus on athletics. And now there's enough people that are strong enough to do a few obstacles that they don't, they care more about the stories now. But the last two seasons, I think I had really good stories and good videos. And I don't know, just a lot of people applying, a lot of really great athletes out there and great stories. So I'm just going to keep training, keep pushing, and hopefully I'll get on that soon.
Yeah, they probably watch like 20 seconds of the video, and then if it's not keeping their attention, they just throw it in the done pile, right? Like, because they're just going through, thousands of videos. So
yeah, it's insane. They watch them all, and I believe them because I know there's a big team of people that do it. So it's not, not all of them gets the actual producers, but someone watches at least a few seconds of every video. And 2 years ago, I got kind of like not a callback, but like an intermediate call where they just like asked some more details. And so I know that one at least got viewed, and I made it through some of the, gatekeepers. But it didn't make the final cut for, what the producers wanted, I guess. And then last year, I think my video was way better actually. But I don't know, maybe the first couple seconds didn't cut it, and it got scrapped. The other thing I've heard is that earlier you apply, the more likely they are to take a look at it and give you advice. Last year, although my video was really good, it came in kind of at the last minute. So there's less time for them to really take the time to get to know me, right? And that's one of the things I struggled with this show, is that fortunately the producer did understand like the value of what I do in the community and stuff. But I don't think they knew the right ways to translate that to TV all the time. And so in the end, I think it worked out, but it is a challenging kind of thing to these two passions that I have for, like science, technology, engineering, math, and then sports. There is a lot of connections, but they're not always very obvious.
And if you want to hear more about the STEM stuff, we had Jay on an episode. I can't even remember what it was, last year before. I don't know. You can go back to the Strength and Speed archives and find the Jay Flores episode and listen to that. We talk a lot about his work with science, technology, engineering, math, his STEM work there, and inspiring the next generation and kids and all the other great stuff he does. So you can go back and give that a listen. Now,
Definitely.
I know you mentioned you've been more consistent with your training, more running, and you got a lot of big plans coming up for 2020. I also know that you just got a new toy in the mail in the last couple of days. So let's talk about that a little bit because, I own a similar one and it's phenomenal. So yeah.
Yeah, I just got the box. I'm super pumped. I haven't been able to try it yet because I just got the box, but the rapid reboot is something that I'm super excited for. Just the ability to be able to recover, more effectively and more efficiently with their technology is something that I'm super pumped for. I think it just mentally too, when you feel more recovered, you're able to go out and crush that next workout even that much better versus that, those excuses that go through your head of, oh, today, I'm going to take another rest day, or, maybe I'm going to cut the amount of repeats that I was going to do, whatever it is, that it's nice to have something like that, in my toolbox to have an extra edge when it comes to recovery. And I just can't wait to put them on.
And if you don't know what we're talking about, rapid reboot, they're the compression boots, right? So they're like full, they cover your entire legs and they compress by zones and help circulate your blood. So they're phenomenal. I'm going to be using them for my upcoming OCR America 2. And I would say the last time I did it, there's like a noticeable change, I feel like, right? Especially when you're really abusing your body. I mean, they just feel very nice, both mentally and physically. And when I would get out of them, I would feel better. Like my legs felt fresher. And the other big thing is they're super easy to put on, right? Like you essentially slide your legs into them, zip them up, and plug in and press power. And then you can essentially fall asleep in them. I'd say in under a minute, you're in and the system's on and it's circulating that blood and you could be asleep, like I said. So.
Definitely. And I'm going to take a video soon and share that with everyone so you can take a look at what it's like. And I know Randy, one of our teammates on the Conquer the Gauntlet Pro team, has already started using hers and put up some videos. She did a 20.20 mile run to kick off the year because she's insane like that. And she put the boots on right after and was, I guess doing a lot better today than she normally would have after a run of that distance. And she's a beast. She's a Boston qualified runner and all kinds of intense stuff, kind of like Evan.
And speaking of also recovery, Compex just also released a massage gun type thing, right? So the one looks kind of like a jigsaw where it's got like the little rubber head and it kind of very focused massage. So we got a couple of those for the team. They literally showed up today at my house. So I unpacked one and I was playing with it and it's phenomenal, right? Like for really, like the boots are real good for generally circulating the blood and general leg recovery. The gun is super good for like spot, right? So it's very precise, right? Like I know a lot of times like my glutes, my ass muscle there, the one that like the part that goes onto like the lower part of your back, for some reason that gets super tight. So I was like, I was poking it in there and just, loosen it up, but it feels really good. So
my girlfriend, my now fiance again, I'm still getting used to saying that. She got me one a while back and, I think she loves it just as much as I do. She's not into OCR or anything, but if you're thinking of getting one, they're not the cheapest thing out there. But if you want to help justify that with your spouse, you can use that as that they can use it too for massage. But I like it a lot for my ninja training because it's like you said, it's very kind of point. With ninja training, your forearms are usually kind of one of those groups that you're using a ton. And can get really sore really fast if any of you do any ninja training or have gone to an obstacle type gym. Your forearms are usually gone pretty quickly. And I've loved that, especially in competition. If there's multiple stages, using it in between is really helpful. And for running as well, I obviously use it too, but Ninja is where I really use it the most.
Yeah, and the Compex one, you can go to compexusa.com and check out their website, but it is lower priced than pretty much I think it's lower priced than every other one I've seen, every competitor's type product. So,
yeah, there's a few out there that are pretty expensive, so it's good to see that.
Yeah, so check them out. Speaking of recovery, I'm going to share a little bit about OCR America too. So like I said at the beginning of the podcast, I said I would never do another one again. And fast forward a couple of years, and I started running out of charity fundraiser ideas. So here I am again. I figured I would do it in the winter because if there's one way to make it harder, it's to make the conditions worse. And being cold all the time is one way to make it worse. And then I've added a day. So instead of 7 days, it's 8 days. So I'm going to be starting Sunday the 19th, January 19th at Obstacle Athletics in Deer Park, Long Island. So kind of pretty close to my parents' house. So if you're in the Long Island area, definitely come out to that. And for that one, because it's a gym, one, I couldn't find enough permanent obstacle course venues that would let me use their place in the winter because a lot of them close up shop. So I'm using several gyms. And for the gyms, kind of like what I did for OCR Mill, I'm going to do a 1 mile run, come back in and do 4 obstacles, or use a treadmill for 1 mile, do 4 obstacles, and repeat until I hit about a marathon length. So day 1 is Deer Park, Long Island, Kevin LaPlatney, Mudman LaPlatney's gym, Obstacle Athletics. Day 2 is Otherworld OCR, or it's now called Otherworld Fitness in Frederick, Maryland. Tim Guinan's gym, one of my favorite, I think it is my favorite OCR gym in the country that I've been to. It's just got a little bit of everything. It's got treadmills, it's got a weight room, it's got obstacles, it's got an indoor hill, it's got a full-length platinum rig. So that is an awesome one to check out. So Frederick, Maryland's day 2 on the 20th. Day 3 and 4 are going to be at Noob Sanity up in Binghamton, New York. So day 3 is Extreme Ravine, so a little more of their terrain, natural obstacle type course. Day 4, Mud Gauntlet. That's their actual obstacle course, which we've just had Jared on the podcast a couple episodes ago talking about all the improvements they've made. So I'm super excited to check that out. Also got a great community, the Seeing Red Noob Sanity crew up there. Day, what are we on? 1, 2, 3, 4. Day 5, we're going to Movement Lab, Ohio. Oh, I'm sorry. No, day 5, we're going to Erie's OCR Battleground. So Erie, Pennsylvania, a small training facility over there that I've actually never been to. So I'm excited. That'll be a blind day. I'm excited to see what they have in store for me. Day 6 is Movement Lab, Ohio. So Michelle Warnke's gym in Columbus, Ohio. One of the best Ninja Warriors ever. So got a lot of good obstacles in there. We just shot a Mud Run Guide live video at the end of December in her gym. Day 7, I was running out of places to go to that would let me go. So luckily, one of the strength and speed guys, William Shell, has a bunch of obstacles that he built in essentially his parents' backyard. So he's actually got a Dragon's back in there. He's got a rig, he's got monkey bars, and then all like the movable stuff, right? So tire flips, bucket carries, sandbags, spear throw, low crawls, anything that's kind of like a wall, kind of pretty easy build type obstacles he's got back there too. So that one's like a private training day. We're going to be multi-lapping that. And then day 8 is the finale, Casey Timber Challenge, Yeti course. It's a 5K OCR, not timed, but it is a lot of fun. And the final obstacle, you get to smash a car, which is a lot of fun. So you can run 5K and then break a piece of a car and continue multi-lapping for that. So head over to Strength and Speed. The sign-up links are on there. So $40, you get a belt buckle, 4-inch by 2.5-inch belt buckle for OCR America, and you get a T-shirt with all the logos on there and all the sponsors that are supporting it. And then let's see what else. It's gonna be miserable. Looking forward to it. Normally there's a long build-up and training period, and I'm kind of relying on my last couple of years of fitness to power through this, which is a bold move. So that's a little bit concerning. The other big concerning part is the weather, right? I can't control what the weather's doing. So there's a good possibility a snowstorm rolls through and either one, severely affects the amount of mileage I can get, or two, has us cut out of the day completely because we physically can't drive in the snow if it gets really bad. So I'm kind of curious to see how this plays out. It's going to be a great time. I got Jacob Stone from Strength and Speed Team coming with me as my driver. I got my dad as my pit crew, keeping me fueled. And then just announced today, I'm going to have Bobby Ross from Stoke Shed, one of the sponsors of Conquer the Gauntlet Pro Team, with me, producing some video content. And then on top of that, Mike Stefano from Obstacle Running Adventures is coming with us, and we're going to be producing essentially nightly episodes on the Strength and Speed podcast, covering, it'll be like 5 to 15 minutes, kind of giving you a day's recap of the events, in addition to all the social media stuff, Instagram stories. So, just keep following Strength and Speed, check things out, donate to Folds of Honor if you can't make it. On the registration link, you can either donate to Folds of Honor there, you can sign up for the event there, or you can also donate to Backside Support, right? So the 100% of race registrations are going to Folds of Honor. The money for the belt buckles and the shirts and the gas and the hotels and the car rental and all that stuff, right? I'm trying to raise that separately and use the sale of like my books and stuff like that to help fundraise for that. So yeah, if you want to just throw a couple bucks our way, the crew would appreciate that. So we can have some more coffee on the road and stay awake between drives. But yeah, it's going to be a pretty epic adventure. What else you got,
That's
Jay?
insane, man. I love it. I'm just like, you're not human. It's insane in that sense, but I also just love what it stands for, and the fact that you're doing it to raise money for Folds of Honor, being such an awesome organization, and what they do for families is amazing. So just the fact that you're willing to put yourself through that is tip my hat off to you, man. And I really hope people will go out and support in one way or another.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And speaking of that, I actually had my first donation was almost the day I opened the event, or it might have actually been before I opened the event. So I baptized my son last weekend at church, and we went to tip the sexton, essentially the caretaker of the church, kind of assistant that works there. And he had read my book, Ultra-OCR, man, and was like, he's like, you know what? Just take the money back, just donate it to Folds of Honor, which was really cool to see because, no connection to the OCR community, doesn't actually know me. I think I'd like met him in passing at one point, but okay. I guess he bought the book from my dad and read it, and thought it was really inspiring, and that was really cool, like personally for me, just to have someone that's kind of disconnected from me, take his own what was rightfully his money and just kind of push it back at me, which is super nice.
That's amazing. That's really cool to hear, and I hope there'll be more and more stories like that, or just in general, even if people in the community are familiar with what you've been doing, but haven't really understood why. Now, now they really know some of the passion behind it, because I've seen you at some of these events and how you just get destroyed, and I'm like, how does this guy keep going? And I'm assuming it's your passion for these organizations and your passion for giving back in that space, which keeps you going when your body says no and your mind says no, and you're on lap 1000. I can't imagine it. But again, hopefully, I really hope people will support, and even if you're not kind of ready to donate to it, just picking up a book or a blood mitt is something that you'll get of value that will also kind of help the cause in general. I'm excited for my blood mitts and my book. So hopefully, if you guys aren't ready to donate just straight up, just definitely get out some value from the books or the blood mitts.
Yeah. And or you're right, like if let's say, all right, you don't have the budget to donate or buy anything this month, just share the event someplace and mention that you're going to donate or something like that. It kind of helps get momentum going, gets the ball rolling. Even a share is much appreciated, both from me personally, from Folds of Honor, and then from sponsors that are helping support the event. So every little bit helps there. Even with my OCR career and with, a lot of these charity events, I really nickel and dime my way to success, right? Like I really rely on a lot of like very small donations that add up over time.
Yeah.
And a lot of the generosity, like all those venues I named are being very generous with me and letting me use their facilities, so huge shout out to them. And there are some facilities that I didn't use because they were not being generous, right? Like, so, the facilities I'm using, please support those facilities, especially if you live in the area or if you're going to be passing through any of those areas. those
Definitely,
gyms
and
and
I'll
those.
second that. I haven't been to all of them, but I've been to MLab a couple times, Michelle Warnke's gym, and it's been amazing every time. I got to train with her dad once, and it was the blast. He's great. And that platinum rig, is actually a Battle Frog rig, right?
Yeah, the Otherworld OCR is one of the original Battle Frog rigs, right? So
Yeah.
I think there was 2 total. One is owned by Adventure OCR World Championships, and the other
Mhm.
one, oh no, there's like, I think maybe there's 3 or 4. I don't know, because you can reconfigure it, right? So one
Exactly.
one has or 2, I think Adventure owns the OCR World Championship. Otherworld OCR has one, and then I think Heidi, right, had the 4th
Yeah,
one.
Heidi Williams in Florida has
Yeah.
a section. I think they went off by sections. I don't
Okay.
know how many it was overall, but I know they had sometimes they had an 80-foot rig at some of their events, and so I think World uh, Adventure has the majority of what's left of it.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, if you miss Battle Frog like a lot of us do, you can go check out that rig. And again, Michelle's gym is amazing. I haven't been to the other venues, but I've heard really good things too.
Yeah. Good stuff. All right. Before we go, any final shout outs you want to give, or you want to share something people may not know about you? Should we do that one?
Oh, that's a tough one. And normally I thought about this actually because I was going to say from now on, I got married on TV or something like that. But it's not married. I got engaged on TV. But one thing that's kind of cool that I don't think a lot of the viewers or listeners might know is that um, my fiance's dad got married again, and we went to Cuba for his wedding, and it was underwater. So we had to get scuba certified to attend the wedding. And we went to Cuba for a week. We spent a few days getting certified, and my first normal dive was the wedding, which was pretty awesome.
Cool.
Yeah.
That is pretty cool. So a couple scuba stories. One, I did fail military dive school. So if you want to read that story, it's in my book. I went to complete unconsciousness twice during training. So not a huge fan of diving, not a huge fan of breath holding, but that story's in there. But I did take, speaking of kind of marriage and diving, I did take she was my girlfriend at the time, scuba diving once, but it was in an aquarium, and it was with sharks, right? So they put you in one of the shark cages, and they drop you into the big shark tank at the aquarium, and you got the scuba mask on, and the sharks are swimming right by you, and it was pretty cool. And if you know anything about sharks, right, they have if you look at their faces really closely, they have these little dots on their face, and that's actually for feeling electrical impulses, right? So when your heart beats, they can feel it on their face, which is kind of cool. Because I remember sitting in the cage and I've got my face pressed up against as close to the cage as possible, so I get close to the shark, but and thinking they can feel my heartbeat, which is kind of cool. Also, my wife hated scuba diving, so she was not a fan. Didn't like the feeling. If you've never been, it's a weird feeling of being underwater, but you can breathe air, right? Because you're biologically with the mammalian dive reflex and the water on your face, it's telling you can't breathe, but you have this thing in your mouth that's allowing you to breathe. So a lot of people actually have trouble with it. It kind of freaks them out until you get used to it. But I don't mind. I don't mind scuba diving.
A while to get used to it, but I loved it. The funny thing for us though is and maybe not so funny, but it ended up being funny, is that at the end of the wedding we did everyone use their spare regulator, the one that you have in case if the one that you're breathing out of breaks. There's always a second one. And we used it to release air from our tanks to create a bubble arc as they were leaving. So we're on both sides of kind of the aisle underwater, right? In that process, my regulator jams. And so it's just releasing all this air and it's not stopping. And I'm sitting here trying to figure this out. Unfortunately, with a lot of experienced divers. And eventually the guy had to take it apart, and I don't know what exactly he did, but he helped me fix it. And then so we we finished that, and then I decided I probably lost a lot of air. I should probably check my tank. I was pretty close to empty. And normally what you do in that situation is you have your scuba buddy, right, that you can breathe out of their backup regulator. But my fiance had decided to go off and get ready for the picture that they were taking underwater, and she wasn't nowhere near me. So I'm sitting here by myself with about to run out of air. I mean, we were only under like 15 feet of water, so I would have been fine. But it's funny, but a lot of those things that I learned in the training was, not to panic in those situations, and kind of how to respond and how to get help. And so fortunately, again, I was with like 30 experienced divers and everything was fine. But my fiance almost killed me at her dad's wedding by not being there to be my help there.
Awesome. Well, awesome story there. And final shout out, when kind of any day now, I'm just waiting for the email back from Amazon. My audiobook, Ultra-OCR Man, should be up for sale on Audible. So you can use an Audible credit there and pick that up, or you can buy it if you're not an Audible member. If you're not an Audible member, you should probably sign up. I think that's like especially for long, slow endurance runs, that's like my go-to. I just listen to audiobooks. Same thing when I drive my car to race, I listen to a lot of audiobooks. So highly recommend Audible. And I highly recommend my book also, obviously. Right. So, all right. I think that's it. Jay, thanks again for coming on. I'm going to go to bed because I have to cram in a little bit more training before this OCR America 2. So head over to Strength and Speed, sign up, pick up a book, pick up the audiobook when it comes out. Jay, any final shout outs actually before we go?
Just shout out to the team, Conquer Gauntlet Pro team. Excited for another awesome season. We got a couple new people and obviously our vets. So I'm excited to see everyone pretty soon at some of these events, hopefully.
All right. We'll catch up to you later. Thanks again.
All right. Thank you, man.